is up? What is up, YouTube boxing family? It is I, K-Rod here. I'm back with another good boxing video breakdown discussion for you guys today. I'm going to be breaking down two fights of this amazing female women's card that has now started officially fight week for Claressa T-Rex Shields versus Savannah Marshall, and Alycia Baumgardner versus Mikaela Mayer as the co-main event for this all-women's top-rank evented female boxing card. I believe it's also co-promoted with Boxer and Salida Promotions. Yeah, so let's get right into it, man. I'm going to start with Mikaela versus Alycia. I think this is the fight that's going to speak a lot at the super featherweight division. The only reason why I think this fight is probably going to speak a lot of volumes is probably just because that this fight does have a lot of natural build-up to it. And the only thing that I'm going to say about this fight is that I think Alycia, she has more momentum to beat Mikaela in this fight. Only because I do believe Mikaela, she's not really been tested a lot in her career. Top Rank has done a pretty carefully strategical job to give Mikaela certain levels of opposition that doesn't, basically make her think a lot. Out of Mikaela's entire career, she's really been fighting women that just stand right in front of her. I think the problem that I have with Mikaela is that she's not really mobile of a fighter, and I think that when she gets put into a situation where she has to box, her feet are really not that good. She really plants her feet a lot down to try to go toe-to-toe with you, which is pretty stupid. I don't really think Mikaela is really that good of a seasoned boxer, in which she really had to use that out of her toolbox to show to her opponents that she's a better boxer. I don't really think she really has that much of a good jab. When you really break it down, it just seems like when she does fight women that do have some minor boxing like ability, she doesn't really use her jab as fluidly. And people may argue to say that she has a good jab, but I don't really think so. I think when you have somebody that has educated defense and has the ability to make you go into deep waters where you can't just rely off of somebody being less mobile and just going to stay inside of the pocket with you to make the fight your fight, that's where I see Mikaela being at her worst, because Mikaela, she really doesn't have that much of a good professional style just by looking at her style. I think Alycia Baumgardner made a good point from the Top Rank trash talk video that they had posted not too long ago, where she did say that Mikaela, she still fights like a amateur. And I think that this is going to really show a lot of holes in Mikaela's game, because I really don't think Mikaela is really in her prime. I think this is more like a make or break fight to show if her skills are really that good. But I think at the state of women's boxing, with the limited amount of opposition that's out there that could really give women a very difficult fight, I think this is really going to show who's really one of the very fewest great fighters out there to actually be battle tested, proven. But how I see this fight going down, I think Alycia, she has more skills in her tool bag to really show more adversity against Mikaela Mayer. I will probably argue for the strengths and weaknesses that Mikaela and Alycia both have. I'll start with Mikaela, but I think as far as strengths go, I think Mikaela, she's a good inside fighter. She has decent inside fighting ability, where she knows how to plant her feet down and start applying pressure, but she throws a lot of wild looping shots, like as if she's gonna try to knock you out, but she really doesn't have any knockout power. Out of all 5 of her knockouts, they've really just been crappy referee stoppages, or just basically the opponents that she's been fighting, they don't really fight back a lot, and 9 times out of 10, they're really only going to that level because the only thing that they're really doing to her is just that they're going to throw, a little bit of pot shots here and there. But, once it gets, extremely physical, Mikaela is basically in there with fighters that we already know that she can, potentially beat. Like she has more of a higher probability to get the victory, and there's really no actual punch resistance going back against her to really make the fight absolutely competitive. So the biggest issue that I have with Mikaela on the weakness side is just simply that she hasn't faced enough adversity with her getting extremely hurt. I don't think I've ever seen a fight where Mikaela has ever been buzzed really, really bad. Some people will say she has a good chin. I would rate her chin to be probably like a solid 7 or a solid 8. I don't think Mikaela's chin really holds up when you have somebody that actually can hit, that could actually really throw down to sit down on the punch. But then on top of that, with women fighting 2-minute rounds, I really do see that to be like the biggest factor in fights, because when you do have like a woman hurt, especially in 2-minute rounds, that really does save them, save them with like the bell, because they don't have to worry about that extra minute. And I think that for this fight of this magnitude, it definitely deserves a 12-round 3-minute fight, because I don't like the fact that these women championship fights are not really being as competitive as people want it, as people want them to be. And I think the issue that I have is that women's boxing is turning into more of a, whoever outpoints who to the 10th round type of fight, because there's really not enough time for the girls to really show how good they are. And I just think that, in this current generation that's growing in the sport with talent, I think now is like the time to get away from the 2-minute fallacy to say that women, need to basically fight, the same minutes and same amount of rounds as men do. Some people will try to be really mentally weird to say, oh, a woman can't handle 3-minute rounds and they can't go full 12. But it's like, boxing is a endurance sport. It's either you have it or you don't have it. So to any fan's perspective, it's either if you're made for the sport, then you're made for it. But if you're not, you're not. But why do women have to have an exception when it comes to a male-dominated sport? And I think for me, at least, I want to pay my money to see a woman get knocked out in 12 rounds rather than 10 rounds, where there is a huge difference in the scale, in the scale ability of how much punishment they could take before getting stopped. And then on top of that, when you add 3 minutes to that, it really shows how many girls can actually last that type of pressure. And I think now, would be the right time in this generation to really give women their credibility, because I don't think 2-minute rounds really solves anything but just making girls feel mentally content, with the fact of trying to basically box their way to, to the 10th round and hopefully get a 6-4 decision off of a fight in which that they know that they would have lost if it was like a 3-minute fight. And then on top of that, going 12 rounds would very well, break them, at the end of the day. So, I mean, that's pretty much like my biggest criticism of this. I don't like the fact that, 10-round 2-minute fights really, still need to be like a round. Like credit to Seniesa Estrada and Marlon Esparza for breaking that, for breaking that barrier of them going 10-round 3-minute, 3-minute, for them having their 10-round 3-minute fight. So I think within the future, more women should start pushing for 12-round 3-minute fights, especially at a world championship level and a world contention championship level as well. So I mean, that's pretty much what I wanted to just add on top of that. But as far as this fight goes, I think this fight will not go the distance. I would favor Alicia Baumgardner to beat Mikaela Mayer. I would probably say she would clip her really hard in the middle rounds. I don't see Michaela's chin really being as persistent as many people make it out to be. She does have a good long jab. Some people are going to argue to say that her height and reach advantage will favor her, but the biggest takeaway from that is that Michaela, she doesn't use her height and reach advantage in any of her fights. You know, all she does is try to come forward and try to mix it up with you. But, you know, once you actually hurt her, you know, that's where she starts to shell up, and she doesn't really show her actual dog in her. And I think what Alicia will do in this fight is that she's going to move around more in this fight. And I think what she's going to do, she's going to do the same thing that she did against Terry Harper, but she's going to start utilizing her 1-2 to the body. And I think what she will do is that she's going to make Michaela confused to the point where Michaela, she can't keep up with Alicia's, footwork. And I think what Michaela will try to do, she'll try to make the fight physical, but I think that will be a failure to her own detriment, because she does not make proper adjustments when somebody does clip her, on the inside. Case in point of a good example of that would be the Erica Farias fight. Obviously, Erica Farias, she was past her prime. She wasn't really that good of herself coming into that fight, but a good takeaway of that fight was that when Michaela was trying to press on Erica Farias, and Farias, she saw the right opportunity to clip Michaela, that's when Michaela, she started to look very, confused, and she didn't know what to do. So I think the punch, resistance of her did not scale well when she actually got hurt, with like a really, really good, unseen shot. And I think that's really what's going to show a lot, in this fight against her and Alicia Baumgartner, because Alicia, she does have the faster hands coming into this fight, and Alicia has better punch accuracy placement to really give Michaela, the benefit of, to really give Michaela the disadvantage of trying to find her range against Alicia. And I think it's pretty much just going to end up being like an Errol Spence and Chris Algieri type of fight. I'm not saying Alicia Baumgartner is like Errol Spence, but her coming into this fight feels like Errol Spence type of vibes, where she doesn't have to say much. She's just going to come in there and give it her all. And I think Alicia, she has more perks in her skill set to really defeat Michaela. And I think Michaela's only chances of victory would be try to dog walk, Alicia, or make her tired in the later rounds, where she's going to end up losing, the championship rounds and maybe get a very close split decision victory. I don't see Michaela really hurting Alicia. I don't see this whole mantra for people saying that Alicia, she's gonna get dog walked, Michaela, she's the bigger lady. But when you really look at the size differential, it looks like Alicia, she's a lot more destructive with her size, capability to actually hurt her more. And just based off of how she throws her shots are more sharpshooter punches, and Michaela's punches are more just straightforward with no proper accuracy. So I think based off of the reads offensively and defensively, Alicia will have more of that advantage to take Michaela down and make the fight more competitive on her end, for her to win the fight, a lot more smoother. The biggest problem that I have with this fight is just that this fight is 2-minute rounds for a championship fight. I think it's time to really stop seeing that, and women really need to start going a little bit more higher beyond that level. So I just think that that should be something that women need to start pushing for. Obviously there's going to be women that are going to be cowards to say, no, 10-round 2-minute fights are perfect for women's boxing. No, the fuck it isn't. I don't like to see it. I'm not going to pay my money to go see women fight it out for 2-minute rounds, and they're going to be content with getting a draw or some sort of BS decision. No, I truly believe it's time to it's time to go beyond that. And I think women that are weak in the sport need to be taken out of the sport, and only the strongest women shall survive in the sport of boxing. So I think it's time to see, 3-minute rounds, take effect, and women need to go the full distance, the same as men. So I'll break that down in another video because I have a lot to say about that, and I think it's time for me to really start expressing myself against that. But as far as I see this fight going down between Alicia and Michaela, I think Alicia she's gonna have more of the upper edge against Michaela, simply due to the boxing ability and the ring IQ. I don't think Michaela's ring IQ has been tested enough to make her really make the quick, fast adjustments. And I think that's going to be the biggest problem with Michaela's offensive ability. I think she's going to come in there with a mindset of her thinking that she's just going to automatically win this fight, because Alicia she's never been at her level to be promoted in these high scaling fights, in which Michaela she doesn't sell out a crowd. She doesn't have that much of a big fan base following, but it's when you see her fight, she really doesn't have any adversity shown in those fights. She's always been matched up against opponents where we already know that she's gonna beat her, and it never makes you think that Michaela's ever going to get stopped or she's going to be hurt by some high high level heavy loaded puncher. It's always been fights where we already know what the outcome was. As far as Alicia's record goes, I mean, let me just break that down, because that's always the biggest takeaway from it. But wait, hold on. Sorry. But yeah, let's just take a look at Alicia's BoxRec. She's 28 years of age. She's out of Bingham Farms, Michigan. 5'6", and I don't know what her arm reach is. She has a 58% or 53.85% knockout ratio. She is fighting for 3 belts, including the IBO belt for the WBC, WBO, IBF title unification. She's had some pretty decent opposition against Thierry Harper, Edith Soledad Matisse, obviously past her prime, not really the best fighter. She's fought, a lot of other names that really weren't, high up there. But her biggest notable loss was against former world champion Cristina Lina Dartel. She's a Dominican fighter that resides out of Greece. She's a decent fighter, not the greatest fighter. She lost to Katie Taylor back in the day at 140, and that was a pretty decent fight. But either way, that was a fight in which I thought Alicia had defeated her. I didn't think Alicia really lost that fight. I thought Lina Dartel really showed a lot of holes in that fight, and she arguably won that fight. I don't know how the other judges try to steal it away from her for her to lose, but that's really the only loss she's ever had. And all the other opponents that Michaela says that she's fought women with losing records. I mean, these are women that she had to fight anyway. This was even prior to the injury that she had, because back in 2019, for those of you that didn't know, after her fight against Cristina Del Valle Pacheco, she actually was injured with the knee injury, and she wasn't able to return for quite a long time. And then prior to COVID, she was basically injured that whole time frame. But when she came back to the ring against Vanessa, in which that was a common opponent to Michaela, so Michaela tries to say that Alicia's been fighting weak opposition, but she's been fighting the most available opposition that's been given to her. So I mean, I don't really see that many females on here in her division that I could really say Alicia would ever avoid. I think out of everybody in her entire career, her only difficult fights that I would ever see her ever be in which women, not a lot of women would ever fight her, would be a lady like, I don't know, like I'll use let's just say Tiara Brown. She's been very quiet lately. She hasn't been able to get all the big fights that she wanted, but Tiara Brown, she's a great fighter. Check her out. She's decent. She's not the greatest fighter. And then maybe you could make like an argument for Alice Sanchez. She was good back in her day. She wasn't able to really do much because she's had some up and downs in her in her career. She got stopped by Jackie Nava twice, and then just recently she lost to Ramona Graf. She's not that good of a fighter. She's decent, but she's okay. But I mean, let's just say 4 or 5 years ago, maybe that fight between her and Alicia could have been made. But Alice Sanchez, she's a decent fighter that could punch, but she's not really high level. So I think Alicia's her climb to become a champion was very difficult. It was more difficult compared to Michaela's championship climb, because when you think about it, Michaela, she had the political machine behind her, so she didn't have to worry about going through any difficult opposition. And that's really how I see this fight going. It kind of really made it seem like that Alicia, she really had to really get it from the mud, and she really had to go through some really bumpy roads in order for her to get up there. But just looking at the level of competition, there's really nobody on here that we could really say that Alicia would have been destroyed by. It's not like she's really been avoiding anybody. She's been doing what she had to do to try to be the best in what she had to be. So honestly, at the end of the day, based off of how I saw this build up be made up, Michaela wants to say Alicia, her claim to fame, ain't shit. And Michaela, she just wants to be undisputed, and Alicia, she was never on the radar to begin with. But I find that to be very untrue, because when Alicia was trying to get up to a world title, she was wanting to fight Michaela prior to when she did become a champion. And I think honestly that the only reason why she didn't fight Michaela sooner to get her title shot and potentially become a victor against her was because of the fact that Michaela, she won the title against past her prime Iwa Brodnicka. And Brodnicka, she's not that good of a fighter herself, but honestly, she wasn't really doing that much to really get up there to becoming like a world champion. Ever since then, she only had really she only had one title defense against a past her prime Erica Farias, and then leading up to the Maiva Hamadouche fight and the Jennifer Hahn fight. I mean, the only tough fight out of her entire resume, or I'll probably say only 2 fights out of her entire resume were only difficult, and that was against Helen Joseph and who's the other lady, Maiva Hamadouche. And out of those 2 fights within her career, that was the only time where she really faced any form of adversity. But looking at both fighters' resumes, I mean, Michaela's resume does not really sell well compared to Alicia's resume. So I don't really see the difference in competition, because Michaela, she fought women with losing records as well. She fought Calista Salgado. She's not that good of a fighter. Adina Kish, she's not that good of a fighter. She has a losing record. She's not been doing anything spectacular. She's basically lost to a bunch of C level, B- level opposition. I'd probably say C level and D level, but I mean, that's really how Michaela built her career up. she's been fed, weak opposition after weak opposition. And I don't really see anybody on here that really sells to me to say, oh, well, she's like the real deal, man. She's going out there just blowing ladies out. But it's like, when you look at these fights, these are ladies that stand right in front of her. Not one fighter out of the entire resume actually utilized their boxing ability to give Michaela a very difficult fight. And I probably say, this will be the first actual test that Michaela will have where she has to utilize her boxing skills to the highest level. But I don't think it's going to hold up, because I think the pressure is going to get to her, and I think Michaela, she's going to get outboxed by something that she hasn't seen before. And I think when Michaela actually gets hurt in this fight, that's really going to show a different side of her. And I think that's really where Alycia Baumgardner, she's going to come in there with a chip on her shoulder to actually go in there and shine. And I think this is going to be the fight where, some people will say, it's a 50-50, but I only give Alycia, the slight edge because she carries the athletic ability and the boxing ring IQ to make this fight a lot more difficult for Michaela to win. And I don't really see Michaela really knocking Alycia out, because she doesn't have that much knockout power. Out of all five of her knockouts, she really hasn't done anything spectacular to really get up there. I don't really see her to be that good of a fighter. She was decent, coming up, as a professional, but once you start seeing the opposition be increased, these were, opponents that she really didn't have that much adversity dealt with. Her only difficult fights, in my honest opinion, that really gave her some difficulty was Helen Joseph and Maiva Hamadouche, in which Hamadouche, she's really not that much of a knockout puncher. She's just a volume puncher, inside brawler type of fighter. She has no boxing ability, no defense, and she didn't really do much in that fight to be successful. And Michaela, she could have arguably lost that fight too, because Maiva, she was throwing more compared to Michaela. But looking at how the rounds were scored and how the poor judging was, very very crappy judging. But I think it really shows that Michaela, she doesn't really have that much boxing skill. She doesn't really use them that much, and she's never been in there with anybody with a pure boxing skill set. And I think that knowing that Alycia, she has more knockout power compared to Michaela in her fights, obviously in her last fight she didn't really do a lot to really be successful, to actually look spectacular in her in her last fight against Edith Matisse. But she got the job done, and she just outpointed her. Also on top of that, Matisse, she came in overweight, so she basically came in at 133 and a half, so she most likely rehydrated up to like a junior welterweight coming into fight night. So I think Alycia coming into this fight, this is gonna really show a lot of levels in this sport. And I think Michaela, she's gonna be in a tough neck and neck war, and I think Alycia, she'll come out with a good victory. My final prediction on this would be a unanimous decision for Alycia Baumgardner, or it'll just be a late round knockout. I don't really see Alycia really going for the knockout. I think the knockout's just gonna naturally come. The only thing I really think that will be a problem for Alycia is just like the height and reach advantage, but I don't think that's gonna bother her, because she has fought women that were a little bit taller than her. But it's like every time when she does come in there and she does mix it up with taller fighters, she does a very good job mixing up her shots and making the fight more difficult for the taller fighters to really get on the inside and try to hurt her. But Alycia, she has great defense, she has great ring IQ, and the footwork is amazing. She's been working with a former super welterweight champion of the world, Tony Superbad Harrison out in Detroit, Michigan. So she's definitely doing what she has to do to to be successful. And I think that the amount of work that she's doing to really show how great of a fighter she is really speaks a lot of levels. So I think Alicia, she has more momentum to win this fight more than Michaela, but I think it's going to be a little decent challenge. It's gonna be neck and neck at first, but then the separation will show late game into the fight. So that's my prediction. Moving forward with Claressa Shields versus Savannah Marshall, this fight I'm a little bit skeptical about this because I think something dirty will happen in this fight, and I'll be the first one to say that I don't trust Savannah Marshall enough to really come in clean in this fight. I think she's gonna come in dirty coming into this fight. Obviously Claressa Shields, she's a very, very great pure boxer, has great punch placement, amazing defense at times, and she does a very good job with utilizing her skills and abilities to make the fight very, very competitive. Her resume is hyper stacked. She's beat all the women in her division. She is a 2-division undisputed world champion at 154 and at 160. She had beat all the names that you could think of: Christina Hammer, Femke Hermans, Hannah Rankin, Hannah Gabriel, Mary Eve DeCare, Emma Kozin, who is a great rising up and coming fighter. There's just so many great names that you could think of. I think that based off of what we're seeing out of Claressa's development, it's coming to a point in time where a lot of people don't really want to mess with her. And I think, the only reason is because that she's a pure boxer, and she really makes a fight very, very difficult and very hyper competitive, in which not a lot of females can really mess with that. I think based off of this fight between her and Savannah, is that Savannah, she is not known for knockout power. Out of all her knockouts, she's been fighting women that either came in on short notice or women that fought her at a catch weight, and she's really not a natural middleweight. The only reason why I say that is because back in the amateurs, she was fighting women that were smaller than her. She really didn't have all this knockout power. And when you look at everything that she's done in the amateurs, she has basically outpointed her opponents. Not a lot of records showing that she's been stopping a lot of people. She really has all this great, amazing knockout percentage power. And the biggest thing out of her amateur experience was beating Claressa Shields in the amateurs, and that's about it. She harps on that a lot to say that Claressa is going to lose to her simply because of the amateurs, and I don't know why she says that, because Savannah, she doesn't have anything to offer other than just her height and herky-jerk type of fighting style, in which I think that will play a decent role in where the fight will go. But if she does come in dirty, then I'm going to call her out on it, because I don't trust Savannah because of her association with the Furies and the criminal mob with Daniel Canahan and MTK Global. So I just think that this fight, knowing that this is technically in her backyard in the UK, I wish it was kind of somewhere more neutral, maybe somewhere out in, I don't know, Mexico or anywhere but the UK. I think the UK is a very crappy place when it comes to boxing, especially when Americans have to fight out there and there's no proper safeguard to actually make sure that there's no cheating involved. I just think that a lot of people really overlook that, to think that the UK, is a great spot for boxing. But I don't think so. I think the UK is a very, very shady place, and I don't trust British people in general in terms of what they say about corruption isn't as bad compared to American corruption. I do believe British boxing is absolutely garbage, but looking at the fighters, like, you can easily tell that the way that they have their fight set up is to make sure that, that 9 times out of 10, their hyped up fighter always wins. And looking at a fighter like Savannah Marshall, she does not show anything to the table in terms of boxing ability and boxing ring IQ and boxing methodology to show any separation and skill set to fairly beat Claressa Shields. I don't see anything out of her skill set that really makes me feel sold on believing that Savannah can win. I believe Claressa is going to destroy Savannah in a boxing match. See, now, the biggest issue that I have with Claressa is that she has this, she has this mentality to come into a fight trying to dog walk her opponents, and I think that only costs her when she makes a little mistake here and there. But she knows what she's doing when she gets up inside with the inside. When she was younger, she didn't have as much a defensive responsibility when she tries to mix it up on the inside. But looking at her inside boxing ability, I think that's going to be a little bit of her weakness that will shade her out a little bit. But I think based off of the level of how much pressure Savannah will come into this fight, I think Claressa, she's going to outbox Savannah, but she's going to hurt Savannah in the process of catching her with, looping uppercuts, or I'd probably say hooks to the body. I think Savannah's going to get hurt to the body, or she's going to get stopped, with like a straight right, because Claressa, she's an orthodox, and Savannah, she's an orthodox. So I don't really see this fight being competitive on the outside, but on the inside, I think Claressa might be in trouble, and I think that's where Savannah, she's gonna try so hard to land her hardest punch against Claressa to hopefully try to knock her out, because she is taller coming into this fight. She's 5'11" with a I forgot what inch arm reach she is. She's 5'11 and a half, but I don't know what her arm reach is. I would assume at least like a 70 or 72 inch based off of, the differential. But Claressa, she's 5'8 and a half. No, she's 5'8 with a 68 inch, arm reach. So I think Savannah will give Claressa trouble by, launching her jab in front of Claressa, making the fight very competitive. And then Claressa, she might be in trouble in terms of Savannah trying to use her size to make the fight uncomfortable on the inside. But I don't think Claressa's gonna let that happen. We've seen her mix up a lot of her opponents on the inside lately, especially with Emma Kozin, Mary Eve Dicaire, which Dicaire, she's not that much of a puncher. She got like a weird referee stoppage against Cynthia Lozano, in which Lozano, she doesn't have any defense. She's a 36-year-old lady that can punch a little bit, but when you look at it, she really doesn't have anything to really gain other than just really throw wild punches and just go in there, putting herself in bad position to basically get hit consistently. So I think Mary Dicaire, that fight between her and Claressa, that fight was not showing any separation in adversity against Claressa, because Claressa didn't need to worry about Mary's power. Mary was basically just running away from her. She really wasn't doing that much to really hurt Claressa. And then same thing with the Ivana Habazin fight, and then Christina Hammer, and then Femke Hermans, Hannah Rankin. Hannah Gabriel was like the only woman out of her entire resume that actually gave Claressa a difficult fight, and which Claressa was very weary of Gabriel's power, because Gabriel, she could hit, but she also had great inside boxing ability. So she knew what she had to do to put herself in in position to make the fight competitive enough for her to be alert of those power shots coming at her. But I think Claressa, she has a great chin. She has amazing Punch resistance, defensive IQ is definitely on point. I don't really see Savannah really landing these amazing punches that she's known for knocking girls out with. I think a lot of people are hyping her up for that, to think that she has this amazing power that's unstoppable, because it's like she really doesn't have any power that's like one shot knockout power. But it's like, if we're really gonna say that she's a naturally heavy fisted puncher, why isn't she fighting women that are comparable to Clarissa's resume? Like, why didn't she fight Hannah Gabriel when Clarissa fought her? Why didn't she fight Christina Hammer? She could fight Christina Hammer right now, and Christina Hammer, if I'm not mistaken, she fights at middleweight. So I don't see why she can't fight her, because Christina, she doesn't have anything going on right now. But it's like, stuff like that. She basically wasted her opportunity with trying to fight basically, a bunch of low-level opposition against women that we didn't really care for her to fight. And then when you look at Clarissa's opponents, she did not match herself against any of Clarissa's opponents. I think if Savannah did that and she dominated those same opponents the way Clarissa did, then yeah, you could have an argument to say Savannah can beat Clarissa. But I don't see that, because when you see the level of opposition that she's been tested with, she's been fighting women that have a disadvantage coming into the fight. But now that this fight is a full camp, and this is where Clarissa is not coming in to play any games, I think Savannah, she's in trouble. It may be in trouble if Savannah is coming into this fight really stupid, and she's just relying off of one hitter quitter power to stop Clarissa. But I don't see that happening, man. I really do believe Clarissa is really in for a absolute shutout against Savannah. But if Savannah does hurt Clarissa, and Clarissa shows something that wasn't really seen before, where she does get hurt really bad, and I really hope that Savannah doesn't come in cheating, because if she does, then I'm gonna call it out, man. I'm gonna be saying something a lot on the channel where not a lot of people are going to be happy with it. But at the end of the day, this is boxing. It's not a clean sport. I mean, if it was basketball, football, any other sport, I'm fine with it, because because you can't really screw somebody's life over, other than just try to manipulate the game to a point to have the favoring team win. But it's like boxing, and I'll probably say maybe wrestling would be the only two sports in the world where you could really try to screw something over against against a combat athlete. So that's pretty much it. I don't really have that much else to really say about the undercard. I think Caroline Dubois, she's on the undercard. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing her on the undercard. I think she's an amazing fighter. She has great boxing, inside ability, great footwork, a great level defense, and she's a great fighter. She definitely knows what she definitely knows what she's doing. There's also other fighters that are on the card. Ebony Jones, I'm not really too sold on her. April Hunter, she's also on the card. Shanna Ryan, I definitely like her. She's a rising super flyweight fighter. She's okay. I definitely like watching her because she's very interesting. Virginia Futch, that's one of Michaela's friends. She's fighting on the card. I'm not really too sold on her. I don't think she's that good. I think she's soon she's soon to be tested against somebody that could that can potentially take her down. But I think Caroline Dubois, she's gonna steal the show, and I think Michaela and Clarissa, that's going to be those three fights are going to make it very competitive on the card. So that's pretty much it, man. I don't really have that much else to really say. Let me know what you guys think about the main event and the co-main event. I think this is gonna be two absolute wars, but I think Clarissa, she's gonna be the victor. I don't see Savannah really winning other than her being dirty against, Claressa. I think that's really where the fight's going to end up going. It's going to be a dirty fight, but I think if she comes into this fight very hyper aggressive, but she also keeps it to the outside and makes Savannah frustrated to the point where she's getting exhausted mentally and physically. I think Claressa, she could stop her late, or she'll just outpoint her, and I think that's really how everything will go down. But I'm hoping Claressa, she understands where the odds are going to be stacked against her, and I hope she gets the victory, because Savannah, I don't trust her. I don't think anything that I'm saying now that Savannah possesses to beat Claressa is actually clean, out of her camp. I think everything that she's saying leading up to this fight, it is all smoke and mirrors for her to come into this fight dirty and try to do anything in her power to try to potentially damage, Claressa Shields' career. But if she was a clean fighter to begin with, I don't think that we would be seeing all these knockouts that Savannah has, because she's never knocked any woman out in the amateurs, but now some way, somehow, she's been stopping ladies in the pros, but she's been stopping women that have a physical disadvantage coming into the fight. So I guess I guess we'll find out coming into this fight, and hopefully this fight is clean and fair, because if not, I'm definitely gonna come back and say something very disrespectful to Savannah and to everybody that's associated. So I don't care at this point. I just want to see a fair, clean fight, and I don't want to see nobody get hurt. But huge big shout out to Alicia Baumgardner and Michaela. I definitely give them a lot of love and respect of making this fight very competitive. With the build up and the trash talking that will sell to the American public. And then also shout out to Claressa Shields, because she's a queen, and all the other ladies that are on the card. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. This is a pretty long one. I just wanted to kind of speak my mind and get up out of here. But this is it. Let me know what you guys think. September 10th, don't miss it. This is at the O2 Arena out in London in the UK. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day. Peace out and goodbye.